Everybody, welcome back to Wicked Good Sports Podcast. This is like the first actual Wicked Good Sports podcast I've done in a long while. Obviously, we shifted to kind of using the podcast feed as a mirror feed to our YouTube videos, so not quite the same thing. More episodes per week, but no long weekly episodes like I used to do, where I would combine all the weekly topics into one video. And that's just based on how we've been doing the channel this year, where we've really had a lot more guests, a lot of call-in things that I can't record at once, I can't edit together very easily. So this episode is just me, same as how things used to be. If you're a long time watcher, unlikely, we didn't have very many watchers when this first started, so obviously no worries there if you're not. So this is the NFL preview podcast. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit about each division and then pop them out into their own videos on YouTube. So that should be good for that. Let's get into it. We're going to be starting off with the AFC. So the AFC East, my favorite division because my Miami Dolphins are a part of it. And for most of my life have been, not that great in it. They've won it 2 times since I've been watching the, sorry. They've won it 1 time, made the playoffs another time, but in 2008 was the only time they actually won the AFC East since. I've been a fan of football, so quite difficult to take, and unfortunately, I don't think this year is going to be any different, and that's because starting off with the Buffalo Bills, they looked great last year. They really have reached the almost top. The only thing that could top it now is if they win a Super Bowl, which I do think they will be contending for a Super Bowl with that squad of their rebuild. What more can you say about them? They lost in the AFC Championship game last year, but they won 2 playoff games to get there, beating the Colts and the Ravens. Very impressed. Josh Allen took that next step, became one of the top players in the NFL. I know he was number 6, I want to say, on the NFL Top 100, and he deserves it. He played out of his mind. He's great. The Bills are going to be great. And you know what? Of the other teams, the Patriots, Jets, Bills, they're my not favorite. How to put this? I dislike them the least. They have suffered mediocrity along with the Dolphins for very, very long time, and their fans seem like cool people. So happy for them. They're going to be first in this division. Second place, I know Pat McAfee angered Dolphins Twitter by saying that the Patriots pretty much are going to be second and the Dolphins going to be all the way down in 4th. I do personally think the Dolphins are going to come in second and be fighting for a wild card spot. I think the Patriots are much improved from last year, but they're starting a rookie quarterback, so very unpredictable. We haven't seen him play even 1 snap, and I think Tua is good, and I think Tua will continue to improve with the offense that they've built around him, with the coordinators that they've added to build around him. So Dolphins, I'm going to pick to come in second, probably around that 11 win, 11-6, maybe 12-5, maybe. That would be great. Probably not 13-4. That's a little too wishful thinking, but they're trending in the right direction, and I think, they could surprise some people. I'm quite hopeful. So that brings me to the Patriots, who I think will finish in 3rd place in this division and at least be competitive on the outside potential wild card. The only reason I say that is because while I do think Mac Jones is quite good and he's going to be quite good, he's a rookie. He's going to have games where he struggles. He's not going to look as perfect as he did in the preseason against backups for the most part. So I think they have added a lot of firepower around him. They're not going to ask him to do too much. I think this is more a product of just the AFC being absolutely stacked. If you're falling in like the middle of the field, it's going to be quite difficult to kind of break out and kind of sneak into the playoffs in that scenario. So Patriots, I think, are going to come in 3rd, and then I think the New York Jets are going to come in 4th. Zach Wilson has me hopeful that he's going to be good. It's going to come down to Robert Saleh, how is he as a head coach? Obviously, we all know as a defensive coordinator, he is phenomenal. Um, so I do think he's going to be a good coach. I think it's always difficult. New York is a pressure cooker of a market. You have to be the right kind of person, have the right kind of mental makeup to succeed in New York from a quarterback position and a head coaching position. So we shall see. I don't think they're especially talented right now, but as much as I hate to say it, I do think the Jets are moving in the right direction, and this AFC East potentially is going to be a very good and very competitive division moving forward. Now that Brady has kind of left a power vacuum in the division, so that's exciting. That will only build. I don't think people think much about the Dolphins, Bills, and Jets. A little bit more the Bills lately because of last couple of years, but I think this will kind of bring those franchises back to relevancy, back to competitiveness with the Patriots after their absolute reign of terror seemingly has, if not come to an end, has at least not. It's not as scary as it once was, and it's not as seemingly assured that they are going to be top of the division every year. And hopefully the Bills don't just take their place. Hopefully it is more competitive. So, yeah, I'd love to hear what you think is going to happen in the comments down below. Give me your 1 through 4 rating for the AFC East, and I'm excited to read those. So, from the AFC East, let's go into the AFC South. The AFC South is a fun one. They've often been kind of labeled the weakest division, especially in the AFC. They always have had at least one dominant team. Of course, Peyton Manning leading the Colts to just division championship after division championship. The Jaguars haven't really been good. They had a year of relevancy with Blake Bortles, but really like the mid 2000s with like David Garrard was their heyday in terms of like being a hard-nosed competitive football team. The Titans are great. Everyone knows the Titans are kind of knocking on the door, ready to potentially make a Super Bowl, but are kind of, victims of a very tough AFC. And then we have the Texans, who were really solid for almost a decade, and then have just completely fallen off a cliff these last few years. So I guess we'll kind of go from the bottom to the top. I went from the top to bottom in the last one. Texans, I think it's a no-brainer. They lack a lot of talent. Bill O'Brien really tossed a hand grenade into the organization on his way out, absolutely destroying it. They have a really, really unfortunate situation with their supremely talented quarterback, Deshaun Watson, being accused of sexual assault on over 20 women, so he's not going to be available. Or they might trade him to the Dolphins, apparently, which would suck. But I'm sure the Texans would be quite happy to get him off their team and get picks back. So they're going to start the season with Tyrod Taylor, which, hey, I like Tyrod Taylor. I think he's a very serviceable player. He always kicked the Dolphins' asses when he was on the Bills. He's had kind of unfortunate situations where he's been. Cleveland, he got taken over the starting job by Baker Mayfield, and then he went to the Chargers. He played one game and then got his lung collapsed by a doctor trying to give him a shot before a game. And that led to the rise of Justin Herbert. We all know how well he did last season. But I just don't think the roster's very talented, and they're going to come in fourth, which really benefits this team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, because they might win a couple games. They only won one game last year. It might be a little better with those two Texans games. So obviously you got Trevor Lawrence, who I do think is going to be a great quarterback. He can't do it all, though. I mean, it might be an Andrew Luck type situation. Probably even worse. I think the Colts were at least somewhat talented with Andrew Luck, and then Andrew Luck's talent and heart and determination and all that really led them to being and playing above their station. I I don't really trust Urban Meyer as a coach. I wouldn't even be surprised if he didn't make it through the season. Not because he'll get fired, but because he's dealt with health issues and he might just leave. We shall see how that plays out, but they're going to come in third. This is where it gets a little bit more difficult because if the Colts had Carson Wentz from a few years ago, I would say they're going to be in first place. I think their roster is very talented top to bottom. It worries me the way Wentz played last year and the, foot injury that I guess he had, and they only discovered it in this offseason, which is very strange, all things considered. But yeah, I think with all the questions surrounding this, I mean, hey, maybe Wentz reunites with Frank Reich and they're right back to it. They're winning 13 games. They're back to how they were when Philadelphia was cruising with them and then won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. But there's too many question marks for me to put them in first place. So they're going to be second. Tennessee Titans, I mean, what can you say? Derrick Henry, best running back in the game. 2,000-yard season last year, had a great season the season before as well. They have A.J. Brown, the added Julio Jones. If Julio Jones can stay healthy, watch out. Watch out for this team. I think they could win it all. They've been knocking on the door. This might be the year for them to bust the door down and make a Super Bowl, which I think is good. I mean, I like Mike Vrabel. Obviously, I have a soft spot in my heart for Ryan Tannehill. No hard feelings on, just didn't work out with Miami, and that's okay. Sometimes things don't work out. He's played really well in Tennessee, and we'll see what happens, right? But yeah, so Titans first, Colts second, Jaguars third, Texans fourth. Those are my AFC South rankings, my predictions. Let me know what yours are in the comment section down below. Okay, from the AFC South back up to the AFC North, one of the most interesting divisions in all of sports. One of the best divisions year in and year out. So last year it was, of course, won by the Steelers. You started out 10-0 and then cruised into the playoffs, ended up losing to the Browns, another AFC North team. The Baltimore Ravens a couple years ago were extremely good as well. And then we have the Bengals, who are improving. They have their quarterback of the future in Joe Burrow. Can they protect him? That's another question. Obviously, last year he started out really well, but he was injured towards ACL and had to finish the season on the bench. So yeah, let's start off there with the Bengals. They didn't draft Penei Sewell. I get it. I mean, I'm sure Joe Burrow wanted Jamar Chase. They played together quite well in college at LSU, and Burrow won the Heisman. So that makes a lot of sense to me. One of the more unfortunate things is, I will say this, I think Jamar Chase will be fine. Starting off this offseason, in the preseason, he's looked like he has a little bit of like alligator arms. He looks like he's a bit afraid of getting hit. I do think that's something that can be fixed by just getting more experience, by actually getting hit, by getting used to it. But certainly not what you want to see out of a top 5 pick. I believe he was the 3rd overall pick. What can you do? I mean, a lot rides on him being, the guy in Cincinnati. That being said, I don't expect the Bengals to win this division. In fact, I think they will come in 4th. So 3rd place. I think this will surprise some people, but I'm going to choose the Baltimore Ravens. I think obviously J.K. Dobbins getting hurt in the preseason, that fucking sucks for the Ravens. It's pointless. I don't know why you play starters in the preseason that much unless you have questions or really want to give them more of learning experiences. I think J.K. Dobbins was established as probably their starting running back, and he's not going to be there this year. That coupled with I can't trust Lamar Jackson. If he's not going to get vaccinated, there are going to be variants of COVID throughout this season that he will potentially catch and miss more time. I would love to say that getting vaccinated is something that he's going to do now that he's had COVID again, but I just can't trust him. I can't trust that he's going to be there, and because of that, I can't pick them to consistently win, so they're going to be 3rd for me. Second place. This is kind of tough. And I obviously thought after the way last season ended, Big Ben was done, and I was kind of surprised that he came back. But I did watch a little bit of the Steelers in the preseason. Ben looks great. I do think it will be a similar situation to last season, though. I think they'll start off really well. They'll start off hot. They get a good defense. And then Ben might get injured. Ben will probably slow down a little bit, and he will probably miss some time, and that'll open the door for the Cleveland Browns, who I think this is probably their best chance to make the Super Bowl. They got the monkey off their back last season. They won a playoff game. They beat the Steelers in the playoffs. Baker Mayfield, he's not the most talented quarterback. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. But he is perfect for what the Browns are building there. He's very good. He has a huge arm. He has the confidence that they need to be. He's the perfect leader to lead that team. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt are a great 1-2 punch, probably the best 1-2 punch in the NFL in the backfield. And then Odell Beckham Jr., I think that he will have a great season as he comes back. He was just getting comfortable in that new offense before he tore his ACL. So I think he'll do well. Jarvis Landry, of course, one of my favorite players, former Dolphin. He's always quite good. So I think the Browns are going to win the AFC North this year. I could be wrong, but I think it's possible. I think it's their year, and I think they might actually make it at least to the AFC Championship game, if not the Super Bowl. So we'll see. I mean, a lot could change. They could come out against the Chiefs in the first game and look awful. We'll see. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section down below. Who do you think is going to win this division? Maybe even give a ranking or a finish list down there. And let's go on to. So finishing off the AFC, we finish with the AFC West. I think this division's better than a lot of people probably give it credit for. Probably think that the Chiefs are going to run away with it. And the Chiefs will almost certainly win this division, but I do think the Chargers will challenge them. I think the Raiders are going to be competitive, but more in like a mediocre tier, if that makes sense. I think they're going to be like 8, 9, 10 win area. And of course, remember there's an extra game. So that's 8 and 9, 9 and 8, 10 and 7 now. Probably not enough to get you into the playoffs, but they're just unlucky to play against the Chiefs twice a year and the Chargers, who look much improved. Obviously, division rivals, anything can happen. They, beat the Chiefs last year. But I do think that it almost feels like the NFL's kind of passed John Gruden by, and I know that sounds terrible to say, but if you watch it, it seems true. We'll see. So I'm going to pick the Raiders to come in fourth in that division. In third place, I'm going to pick the Denver Broncos. People might be a little bit surprised by that. I think Teddy Bridgewater is a very underrated quarterback. I think he's quite good, and he's won the job. Courtney Sutton coming back is huge. He looked good in the preseason. Doesn't look like his knees bothering him. Melvin Gordon without Phillip Lindsay, I think he's going to have a better year than he did last year. And then, of course, we have Jerry Jeudy on the offense. I think that offense is going to be good. I think it's going to surprise some people. Not only that, the defense, we got Von Miller coming back. Chubb's a beast. I think they're going to be competitive. I think they're going to be a 10, maybe even 11-win team. The Chargers are going to come in second, I think. I think Justin Herbert's going to build on his year last year. The Chargers were better than their record. I think a lot of people who maybe didn't watch the games didn't know that they were like in a lot of these games. A lot of them were one score, just bad decision making. They have a new head coach, and I think that will potentially alleviate some of the mismanagement that happened at the end of the games last season. So that's good for them. I think Justin Herbert's a beast. I think he'll only continue to grow, and him versus Patrick Mahomes for the next 10, maybe even 15 years, if we're getting crazy about it, could be a lot of fun in the AFC West. So yeah, they're going to come in second. And then the Chiefs what is there to say about the Chiefs? They're incredible. Their offensive line was injured and kind of fell apart in the Super Bowl, or I guess didn't really show up in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes is running for his life. They've worked to improve it. I think it'll be improved. They have a good running game. They have an elite passing game, probably the best passing game in the league, led by the best player in the league. Their defense is solid. It's likely, not only are they going to win the AFC West, it's likely that they're going to be in the AFC Championship game, if not competing for another Super Bowl for the third year in a row. I know sometimes when teams lose a Super Bowl, things can get weird. They can fall apart. I don't particularly think that's going to happen. I think Andy Reid is too good of a coach. He's had teams that lost in like the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship game and the AFC Championship game before. He knows how to not let teams get too down and to continue to have success. So I do think that the Chiefs will win. The AFC West, probably not a bold prediction. I think most people think that the Chiefs will win the AFC West, of course, barring any injury. So, yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Give me your ranking. Give me your finish lists. Who do you think is going to win this division? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Chargers are going to do it. Maybe the Raiders will do it. Who knows? I'd love to hear from you in the comment section down below. Okay, so from the AFC to the NFC, we're going to start off with the NFC North. So the NFC North had a very interesting offseason, mostly because of Aaron Rodgers. There were questions about if he was going to return to the Green Bay Packers, if he was just going to retire, host Jeopardy. There seemed to be a lot of turmoil there, and I'm sure the other teams in the division were quite happy because they all had interesting off seasons in their own right. For the Chicago Bears, adding Justin Fields, finally giving their fans something to be optimistic about. I personally thought Justin Fields was the second best quarterback in the draft. Was a little surprised the Jets drafted Zach Wilson instead. Obviously, they preferred him to Fields, but Fields has played quite well in the preseason. I think he's going to be a good pro. Dan Quinn, former Dolphins interim head coach, is the head coach of the Lions now, replacing Matt Patricia. He's a complete psycho. His introductory press conference featured him talking about biting kneecaps. It was very strange. So the Lions are a complete wild card for me since they traded Matthew Stafford, their probably best player, for Jared Goff, who, he's a serviceable quarterback, but outside of the system in Los Angeles, I'd be a little surprised. Maybe Sean McVay kind of made him, and the Patriots and then Dolphins to an extent last season really exposed his weaknesses, and after that it just was a little bit over for his good standing in Los Angeles. So I do think they will finish in fourth, the Lions, and then finishing in third. Their offseason story was the Vikings. Kirk Cousins is very staunchly and openly anti-vax, which is not great. He's probably going to get sick at some point. He's probably going to miss some time and potentially bring COVID, if not itself, into the locker room, at least, get people in with close contact, which is not what you really want from the Vikings. You can tell their coach is quite frustrated with Kirk and some of the other players, Adam Thielen as well, being anti-vax, but he can't force them to take it. So what are you going to do? If I was a Vikings fan, I would be extremely frustrated. So yeah, I put them in third just because I don't trust that Kirk Cousins is going to be available. And because of that, I can't trust anyone on the Vikings. I think the Bears will come in fourth. Do I think the Bears are going to be making the playoffs or anything? No, but I do think that they're going to win like 7, maybe 8 games. And Justin Fields will see probably sooner than later. I know Andy Dalton's starting, but most likely it's because they don't want to throw Justin Fields to the Wolves, with Aaron Darnold and the Rams being their first game of the season, which is understandable. So Expect to see him around week 4, maybe from then on. And then the Packers. I think the Packers are going to be extremely good this year. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be even more locked in than he was last year because he's, if not explicitly said outright, heavily hinted at the fact that this is the last season he's going to be playing with the Packers. And I feel like he's the type of guy who wants to leave on top, one, for the fans, but two, to be like, you know, should have treated me better. I just won a Super Bowl and now I'm bouncing. Should have never drafted Jordan Love without telling me. So I think they're going to go like 13-4, maybe 14-3, something like that, and win the NFC North. What do you think? Is my Bears prediction too high? Do you think the Vikings are easily going to come in second, even with all the potential COVID stuff? Maybe you think the Lions will get up there. And I mean, maybe you disagree about my Packers take. I think it's pretty safe to say that they're going to win the division, though. So let me know. Leave me your rankings and finish order in the comments down below. All right, so from the NFC North down to the NFC South, very interesting. Obviously, we have the defending champions, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who returned all of their starters on offense and defense. First Super Bowl winning team to ever do that, which is not surprising. That's a ridiculous feat to accomplish. Brady's older. He certainly doesn't look like it so far in the preseason. He's made a deal with the devil, or he is sucking youth from children. No other explanation. Yeah, so I think they'll be good again. Jameis Winston's probably going to start for the Saints. I think that's the right move. I think they will be good and competitive once again. Very excited to see what Winston does in Sean Payton's offense. Other than that, I think the Falcons are going to have a tough season. Outside of Matt Ryan and now Kyle Pitts, I don't think the roster is especially talented. And then to round out those four is the Carolina Panthers, who traded for Sam Darnold. They're a complete wild card to me. I do think that they'll finish in that 8-9 win range. I don't expect them to make the playoffs. It'll be interesting to see if Sam Darnold can salvage his career at all in Carolina after a rough go of it in New York. So yeah, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to potentially repeat as Super Bowl champions. As difficult as that is, I think, having Tom Brady really serves as not only a motivator, but a confidence booster for a lot of the players. I mean, it certainly helped last year where they all bought in 100% on him and they won. And then this year, I think they all want to and are in a good position to repeat as Super Bowl champs. At the very least, they'll finish number 1 in the NFC South, followed by the Saints, who I think will be a wild card team. And then I don't think the Panthers in third or the Falcons in fourth will be making much noise in terms of trying to get into the playoffs. We'll see what happens there. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I think these ratings are pretty vanilla. I think most people will agree with them, but maybe you disagree. Give me your power rankings and ratings in the comments down below. Okay, so let's start with the West Coast, the NFC West. The Seahawks are year in and year out a very good team. That's mostly due to Russell Wilson and solid defense. I think they started out really hot last season. And then they kind of went away from allowing Russell Wilson to cook, as it were, to be the focal point of the offense. I don't think that they'll do that again this year. I think that they will put it more into Russell Wilson's hands. I mean, he's already proven he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. It's about time that the Seahawks treat him like that, because up until now it's been a little silly in terms of how they've treated him. I mean, the man won a Super Bowl in his second year. He's accomplished quite a bit, and I think they really do need to recognize that, he is a once-in-a-generation talent that they're kind of letting waste away after those 2 quick Super Bowl appearances. Let me know if you think, they're kind of wasting Russell Wilson a little bit. Past the Seahawks, we got the Rams, who I think are going to be a Super Bowl contender. This team is stacked. They're in win now mode. They don't really have any first-round picks for a long while because they've decided to flip those picks for established players, which is a good strategy for short-term success, not a good strategy for long-term success. We'll see what happens here. They traded for Matthew Stafford, obviously, so that should be very interesting. They just traded for Sonny Michel from New England, who I think will have a great year in St. Louis. Jesus, still have them as St. Louis in my head. In Los Angeles, I think he will be a surprise breakout player this year. So I have high hopes for the Rams personally. Other than that, we got the Cardinals, who they have a great receiving core. They added AJ Green. I don't think Larry Fitzgerald has officially announced one way or another if he's coming back. He certainly is not going to be back for the beginning of the season, maybe a little bit into the season. He'll make a run at it. But I do think if AJ Green can stay healthy, he can kind of come in and be that number 3 receiver for the Cardinals. DeAndre Hopkins is obviously potentially the best receiver in the league. He's always going to be good. They added J.J. Watt, who I still think has some left in the tank, to pair with Chandler Jones, who is just so good. So we'll see how they do. I think they'll be competing for a wild card similar to last year. Hopefully for them, it goes better than last year. And finally, we have the 49ers, who are in a weird position because they seem like they're well established to win now. They were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, but they just drafted Trey Lance, who's their quarterback of the future. So they're kind of towing the line. I think we don't see Trey Lance too much this year, maybe in the second half of the season, or if Jimmy G gets injured. I mean, that's certainly not out of the question. If they can avoid injuries, like last year, they just got devastated in a few weeks, and that pretty much put the kibosh on success for them for, the rest of the season. I think they can be a potential wildcard team. This division's very stacked. I think it's very good. Potentially the best division in football, which is funny because like 5-10 years ago they were laughing stock sending Seattle to the playoffs with a 7-9 record, but times certainly have changed. All that being said, I think the Rams will come in first, Seahawks second, Cardinals third, 49ers fourth. So we'll see what happens. This is the division I'm least confident in my ratings because I can see, depending on injuries, depending on COVID, depending on all kinds of factors, any of these teams winning the division and any of these teams coming in last. So let me know your thoughts, what you would rank these teams in the comments section. I'm very interested to hear about that. All right, let's close out the show, the very last division. I saved this one for last because I think it's the most interesting and most memey, just because last year none of these teams were good. Historically, the NFC East has been quite good, but it was bound to happen eventually that these teams would have down years. They happened to have down years all at the same time. Obviously, the Cowboys were hurt by Dak getting injured. They could have had a better record, and then Washington football team, they just never really had like consistent quarterback. Alex Smith played, Dwayne Haskins played, and then got cut. Taylor Heineke played, Kyle Allen played. It was just a lot of, you can't establish like momentum when you can't have the same signal caller each week. So I think understandably they struggled in that respect, but hey, still went to the playoffs and won the division with a losing record, but still made it. Gave Tampa Bay a heck of a game in that wild card round. So good on them. I do think with Dak Prescott being back, the Cowboys are in the driver's seat of this division. So I'm going to put them as the number 1 team. I expect Dak to play quite well. If the shoulder thing, isn't too detrimental. I mean, coming off the ankle, now shoulder, not great. We haven't seen him in the preseason, so I will be keeping an eye on that. But yeah, lock in the Cowboys for number 1, and then the Washington football team with my man, Ryan Fitzpatrick, number 2. We'll see if we can finally make the playoffs. Then we kind of drop off a cliff. So the Giants do not look like a good team. Will Barkley come back and tear it up after tearing his ACL? Hopefully, but that's not a guarantee. He is potentially one of the best players in the entire league, but if he's not healthy, what can you do with that? Daniel Jones. I was a big Daniel Jones defender when he first came in. I thought he was going to be good. He turns the ball over too much. I don't think he is the answer for New York, and this will be the year, make or break, whether or not he shows up. And then the Philadelphia Eagles are a dumpster fire. They just traded for Gardner Minshew, which if you're confident in your starter and Jalen Hurts, you're not trading for it. That tells me that they're not confident Jalen Hurts is the guy. Gardner Minshew can come in and win some games, but I don't see this being a good situation in Philadelphia. I thought they were very untalented last year, and that led to Carson Wentz trying to play hero ball a lot and not succeeding. And then when Jalen Hurts came in, a lot of the same thing, trying to play hero ball and not succeeding. So we'll see what happens there. I do think Jalen Hurts can be good, but maybe it's just not the right fit here in Philadelphia, and certainly the ownership doesn't think so. So I'm going to rank, this is hard, I'm going to put the Giants in third and the Eagles in fourth. But what do you think? Do you think I'm completely wrong here? Do you think Washington football team is going to be the number one team over the Cowboys? And then what do you think about the Giants and Eagles? Are those flipped 3 and 4? I think most people agree that the football team and the Cowboys are the two best teams in this division, but I'd love to hear what you think. And this brings us to the end of this NFL preview podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed rambling on about all the teams, and I am so excited for football to come back. It's my favorite sport, and I'm actually hopeful for the first time in a while, which probably means the Dolphins will have something go catastrophically wrong and I'll lose all my hope. But for now, I'm going to try to hold on to this feeling and just ride it through. So thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you liked it, maybe subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast services. You can follow the channel on Twitter at WickedGoodSport or at WG Everything, on Instagram at WickedGoodEverything, and Twitch at twitch.tv/WickedGoodEverything, and on TikTok, search WickedGoodEverything. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.